Namaskar, hello friends. Welcome to a fascinating e-tour with me, Navina Jafa, on the Arabian Sea, the coastal enclaves of Daman and Diu. Sitting in our homes with limited actions, limited uses of our sensory senses, our smell, our mouth, our touch, we are wondering and reflecting, when is it that we will travel? That itch, let's not worry. Let's go and visually use our imagination to reflect. We are introducing you to a curated e-tour where Daman and Diu along the Arabian Sea is not only by giving you a list, okay, day one you do this, day two you do that. It is really about introducing you to a huge region, its history, its culture, its heritage in so many layers, geologically, geographically. So tie your seatbelts and let's go from our homes right onto the Arabian Sea of the western coast of Daman and Diu. Daman is on one side, which is the eastern side, and the Diu is on the left side, and in the middle is a funnel of the Bay Gulf of Cambay called Kambat. 600 kilometers or more away from each other, Daman and Diu, as the Union Territory of India, unravels and offers before you a curtain raiser of old and new, of dreams and fantasy, of knowledge and fun. So let's travel. How do we reach the next idea of how do we reach these destinations? It's difficult to do both of them because they're 600 kilometers away from each other. So each of them will require maybe two visits or a longer period that you can travel from this side of the Gulf of Kambat to that side of the Gulf of Kambat. There is a road connection from Mumbai, which is about 180 kilometers, with regard to Daman, which falls around the foothills of the Western Ghat. The nearest station for Daman is Vapi, and you have in Navi Daman a small airport, and you can come in and into Daman. For Diu, you have the Varaval train station, which is quite near, and you bus it down. You take a road trip right to Diu, which is an island actually, which is called the Island of Calm. And you have, Daman has a small airport. So we are all set. The most important way to enter the region of understanding and taking back of traveling, after all, traveling is also about learning, about enriching your life and making you so much more enthusiastic to live life. So let us not forget the first rule of any way of decoding human species is the way human species have responded to a geographical context. Human beings build, live, eat, gather knowledge in order and in correspondence to a geographical context. So let us travel the geographical context of Daman and Diu along the frames of themes. Yes, we have black sand beaches. It's exotic. And you know why? Because black sand is an indication that under the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean, there's been volcanic activity which throws up the black sand. We also have a shell museum. The shells are an indication of the wonderful ocean activities of form, color, shapes, geometries, and also understanding that Daman and Diu in the Gulf of Cambay form a part of a central tectonic fault. Let us not forget that South Asia is still rising northwards. So today we are sitting as so-called Indians and South Asians. Maybe centuries and centuries later, the whole geographical shape will change when India moves more upwards north. We also have mangroves. Many rivers like the Narmada, Tapi, etc., come into the Arabian Sea. And so it's not only the Sundarbans with Ganga, etc., and Brahmaputra, but it's also this side we have mangroves, which actually offers to India a huge variety of geographical biodiversity and oceanic biodiversity and geological wonders. Talking about geological wonders, do you know there's a phenomena called the sea caves? And Diu has Nadia caves, 100 tunnels, and yes, like Tom Sawyer and and different other settings. You have mysteries of 100 caves joined by limestone caves that give you a fascinating idea of light and reflection and going into adventures and ghosts and many more soldiers and dark tourist activities. We come now next to understanding the first responses of human species in this area, what we call Adivasi, first citizens, indigenous communities, and we can learn so much. Yet they offer us not only for ways to harness our nature in a more ecological, ethical manner, the way they store water, the way they collect honey, the way they use forest produce, the way they have engaged with the ocean producers. So let us see. There are quite a few indigenous communities in Daman-Diu, and all these communities are now coming into the main fold. However, they got impressed also by the larger frame of Brahminical practices, and many of them would say, "Oh, that particular god is similar to your Krishna. We celebrate Diwali, whereas they have a whole template of their own festivals." One of the things we can learn from them is the idea of circularity. In India, the concept of circle is so important, the whole idea of life, death, rebirth, etc. So here we see the worldlies dancing and the worldly paintings talking about circularity of life. Let us see a circular dance. Yes, we have traveled the whole idea of tribals and nature, but they also know how to enjoy life. Right from the time of Rigaveda, when we have the mention of intoxication as breweries or bhang, we also have toddy and we have different methodologies of indigenous breweries. Yes, you can go to Daman and Diu and have a glimpse right next to the dry state of Gujarat to understand there's a heritage of breweries and intoxication that allows human being into the world of imagination. Daman and Diu is also about understanding that the flowing idea of histories. Wherever there are natural resources, obviously there'll be movement of human beings to harness those natural resources, fight for them, create power structures to have control over them. And in this case of Daman and Diu, we have from very ancient times a huge template that records the coming in of Mauryas and many more dynasties, including the Kshatrapas, who were the Scythians from Iran and Central Asia, who came here, and we find actually coins here. And right up to the sultans of Gujarat and so much more. It's not only Portuguese, it's not only Mughals, it's not only the Mauryas. This is constant movement of human beings trying to control natural resources and therefore power. It's important to understand that ships and economy are a testimony of how trade, harnessing the oceans, had become a part of the Indian subcontinent history, and India's link in the geopolitics and the geoeconomy of global economy was very important, and Daman and Diu are testimonies of that. So, within this context, let's go into the different communities of merchants. We have the Gangeshwar temple, which is a unique temple that connects the Gathas or the myths. But we also, it's a testimony of the fact that they were Brahminical merchants that just sailing down into the Arabian Sea, touching base with Somalia, with Eastern Africa, and beyond. The Sultan of Gujarat is very important. He gave a lot of impetus to mercantile activities and organized the shipbuilding communities, the fishing communities, and the mercantile communities into a very systematic system. And here, within this context, we have a very important community we cannot forget even in the modern Indian history perspective, and those are the Parsees. The Parsees made their way to India around the 8th century and first, in fact, landed around this area of the Gulf of Cambay. And in Sajan, which is near Daman, going beyond Daman, you also have Uddava, where you have the most important fire temple. So you have in Uddava the fire temple, and Sajan, where you have a memorial commemorating the eternal fire. The Parsees also in Uddava have the oldest burning fire, which is like the Mecca Medina of Muslims, the Kashi Vishwanath for the Hindus, and so on and so forth. So for the Parsees in Uddava, you have Uddavada, you have the oldest fire temple. And this fire temple is of Iran Shah and of Atash Behram. The mercantile homes are very big report cards to say how important in Daman-Diu the merchants had a very important play in the urban planning and the urban celebration of lifestyles. Their homes are very elaborate. Another community which played a very important part in the mercantile history of this area are the Khoja Ismailis, headed by Sir Aga Khan. And he made a visit here, and there's a beautiful contemporary Jamaat Khana, because the old Jamaat Khana or these people that also got destroyed, and therefore you have the Jamaat Khana, the new, where they wear these elaborate clothes and came, and you have a lot of interesting pictures to mull about the interesting give and take of ideas of human communities moving and amalgamating the vibrant culture of Daman and Diu. Finally, we come to the Portuguese. And this slide, which is slide 20, will make you realize the Portuguese came and they established a control system of issuing passes, a system that would control trade from here to the Malacca, and from here, from Diu. It was very important for them to make Diu, the central, and Daman, a centralized pass issuing center to control the trade. Every ship passing along the spice route had to stop on Diu. Can you imagine that? And that is what the Portuguese did. So, in resentment. 1509, we have the Battle of Diu. And in this Battle of Diu, the Portuguese on one side, the Sultan of Gujarat, the Zamorin of Calicut, the Republic of Venice, the Ottomans, they all joined together, and the Mamluk of Egypt joined to defeat the Portuguese. But the Portuguese won, and this was the entry. The Battle of Diu became the entry point of Europeans on South Asia and Asia. So this is this is the testimony that comes out from Diu. Once Diu was captured, the Sultan of Gujarat was wanting to protect himself from the Mughal Emperor Humayun, and he then signed away a piece of land, and that little foot made Portugal a part of the Indian history from from 16th century to 1961. And they built the fort of Diu and reigned supreme. When you go into the Fort of Diu, it's a very important part of it, into the ocean on an island is a unique building, a structure that comes up called Panikota Fort. It is actually a fort that played the role of a jail, and it has a chapel, and the chapel is that of the Lady of the Sea. The protect all over the coastal areas of India, you have sea gods and goddesses. So here we have the Lady of the Sea, the Virgin Mary, called the Stella Maria, the star of guiding the apostle of the sea, guiding the merchants coming along. We have three forts, the Diu Fort, the Moti Daman Fort, and the Nani Daman Fort. And all these forts, we will travel little by little, giving you a glimpse. There are some very interesting features. For instance, you have walls and bastions that you see evident here in our slide number 24 of the Moti Daman Fort. You also have maps that emerge, like the one you're seeing, which is the Fort of Diu. You also have lighthouses. Now, lighthouses are becoming in itself a part of tourism because they give you views, they give you some imagination of the life on the sea, but there is an aspect of dark tourism because a lot of the lighthouses have mysteries and sad stories. You have these gates, which are a part of all these forts, which are massive, sometimes with a little portrait of some gods, some venerated people. And you have bastions and watchtowers, also a part of the fort, the cannonballs, and other kind of buildings. An important part of the narrative on Daman and Diu, with the Portuguese coming, is the history and the heritage of Christianity. They brought the different people, or especially priests and apostles, and formal linkages with Catholic Christianity in order to provide them faith, motivation, create ways to link them with the local population and create controls over their new land and territories. So we have, for instance, a monastery, the Dominican monastery, which was broken down by the earthquake, and it was one of the earliest great theological centers. In this monastery, even, and this is a reminder of how great the whole ethos of the heritage of Christianity has been, old and yet fascinating. In the forts and nearby areas and towns, you have large number of churches. For example, this is the St. Paul Church of Diu. And this has also got two major festivals. And of course, you have the first, one major festival is the 11,000 Virgin Festivals. So Saint Ursula became a martyr, and this also indicated a huge testimony of linking women's education and Saint Ursula. So the whole theme of 11,000 virgins. In these churches, you have the evidence of a lot of different kind of artwork. And one of them is, for instance, look at these beautiful paintings. This is the gift of Magi. In the next slide, let us see what we see. Here we have the woodwork, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ in St. Paul. Look at the intricate woodwork. In slide number 35, here we see the chapel of the Lady of Rosary. The Virgin Mary, who's also the Stella Maria, who guides the sailors on the sea, is also worshipped in her own right as an energy goddess, as a protecting goddess, as a goddess of compassion and love. So here we have Look at the beautiful artwork in this little chapel, the gold leaves along the altar. One important aspect of the themes of Daman and Diu is flowers and courage. And let us see what it means. Do you know that the Portuguese were in India until 1961 when Operation Vijay took place by the Indian Army and they were evicted out? But this impetus by the Indian Army also got a lot of encouragement in Portugal, where simultaneously there was one of the greatest peaceful revolutions of the world called Carnation Revolution. The soldiers did not fire bullets, or the cannons did not fire uh, cannonballs, but fired red carnations. And this was a very peaceful, uh, and the peaceful revolution, and people urged that Portugal should give up its colonies finally. So it was not only the Operation Vijay, but it was this lovely flower revolution in Portugal. 1971, India played a great geopolitical role in the creation of a new country, Bangladesh. And this war, the 1970 war for the freedom of Bangladesh, formerly called East Pakistan, has some extremely poignant narratives of soldiers and our servicemen of our armed forces. One of the greatest stories of the 1971 war is that of INS Khurki ship, which was bombed by a Pakistani submarine, and Admiral Mullah took the decision of sinking the ship. He let all the soldiers go, but he remained behind as a captain should. So, while you're visiting Daman and Diu, do not forget to visit and pay your homage to Captain Mullah and his brave men, INS Khurki Memorial. Daman and Diu is a land of dreams and fantasy. And what are these fantasies? Fantasies of our senses. Cuisine: Portuguese, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, Gujarati, Marathi tinges, and so much more. Seafood, along with a huge palette of vegetarian food, and also some of the indigenous community food. There are large number of restaurants and beaches, and just the glory. Yes, the dry state of Goa and the fantasy land of Daman and Diu. Apart from that, apart from the aspect of cuisine, we also have water sports. So here, there's the Marisol water sport, both on the beach and on the water sports centers. Why go to Goa and other destination? Why not come to Daman and Diu? Renew your marriage vows, get into a destination wedding. Yes, Daman and Diu is a huge statement invitation for you to come. Be wed, renew your marriage vows or any other relationship through nature, through fun, and through relaxation. Daman and Diu, in Diu, there's also, because of the mangroves and the estuaries, there's a small bird sanctuary where you see the king flamingo and many, many birds. There is such a huge index of come quickly to Daman and Diu. We've traveled today a fascinating idea of Daman and Diu, which is also including the beach tourism and also unique ways of doing something else. Activity tourism in terms of heritage walks and also crafts, which when you go there, you can explore. And of course, beach tourism. So many kinds of beaches. And the background, sometimes a fort, sometimes something else, the sunset, the sunrise, reflection, looking at the hearing the sound of the ocean. So much to enjoy. One of my poems, I was traveling with you, and these are the lines I have written for you. Come to Daman and Diu. The sun has set not only to rise again, the tides have receded only to rise again. The birds chatter, speaking of historic darkness and of courage, enclosed in the silhouettes of the forts and lighthouses. Another day gone by, another basket full of stories to be told on a moonlit night. I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you. Join us again and again for an e-tour of the idea and story of India. Namaskar. Signing off, Navina Jafa.